back. So, I just watched the newest superhero DC Cinematic Universe film, Superman. And while I didn't completely, totally hate it, I didn't also love it either. It has its moments. I can't say it's terrible. I can't say it's great. I can't say the plot is really stupid, but it has its moments. So, get ready for my spoiler-free review, and then I may or may not complain about a bunch of things that may or may not be spoilers. So, let's get into it. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
I'm actually torn about getting into the whole spoiler part. It's just, some things are really stupid and I really want to complain about them, but I'll go with the flow. So let's start with, lighter stuff. But before we get into it, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at DarioSDW and at Super Dario World. Do not go to Mossy Twitter Pacific Beach unless you want to deal with a bunch of con artists. But, okay, let's get into it. So, they suck. Don't go to them. Anyway, so let's get into the Superman movie. So, overall, the plot is very stupid for this movie. It is very, 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 very dumb. It annoyed the fuck out of me, and I will probably complain a little bit, and those might be spoilers. But overall, the movie's watchable. I mean, I watched it in Mexico. It cost me like $5, $6 maybe, the exchange rate. And I don't feel like I threw that money in the trash. I was in the movie theater. I laughed. Again, the same issue with any James Gunn movie, or particularly the superhero ones, too many jokes. Not all of them land. Some of them do, and those are fun. So that, I will say this, all the controversy about, that was being said about this movie, I didn't really see it on screen. So as I expected, it was more kind of a media concoction. They were trying to get clicks, and they ended up blowing out of proportion, something that they probably shouldn't have. Honestly, I didn't notice anything that was blatantly woke or anything that was blatantly offensive to anybody. There's a few things that could be here and there that could be described that way. Although again, it depends on how sensitive you really want to be about it. So overall, that part blown way out of proportion, which sucks because it's really going to hurt the bottom line for this movie. I think it's a movie that pretty much anybody could have watched and no issue. And actually, now that I think about it, like looking back at some of the interviews and the way that the actors were kind of answering, like particularly the Nathan Fillion one, it's now his answer makes a little bit more sense because the question of immigration does not make sense within the context of this movie, but whatever. Anyway, point is, movie's really not political. It does have a few things that you may not like here or there, but whatever. It's overall, that's not the main issue. And again, it sucks that actors and the director or whatever, or the producer could not shut up about it. And again, for the reporters for asking the question, that puts it in the situation, because I think it's really going to affect the movie, and I don't think it's fair. At least that part does not seem fair. So, most important thing for this movie, obviously, Superman. The performance of this guy's name, which I forget, David Corenswet, is actually pretty good. I was surprised. This dude actually does a pretty good job. He does a pretty decent Superman. There were hard shoes to fill, because everybody loved Henry Cavill as Superman, but I think the dude does a pretty good job, and at least on that part of the movie did not feel like he was like he didn't do a worse job than David Roth, or is that his name, Routh? Actually, now that I think about it, I'd say that this movie is probably better than Superman Returns. I think that he did a better Superman than David Roth did, or I think that's what his name is. But the movie, I wouldn't say it's a great Superman movie overall. I wouldn't say I'd say it's a fine, silly superhero movie, but there's so many things that just don't work. So you come in way too late for this movie. The movie starts, and a bunch of things are already set up. So the world is completely set up. Superman already has been working for a while. His relationship with Lois Lane has already progressed to the point where she knows his secret identity and they're dating. There's a Justice gang, so there's other metahumans around. So Lex Luthor already hates him and it's already planning to take him down. So we're just thrown. Actually, the movie begins thrown into a middle between of a fight of the first fight that Superman ever loses. It's the scene that they show in the bunch of trailers where he's falling in Antarctica and Krypton picks him up. That's where the movie begins, after Superman loses his first fight and Krypto has to take him back home to get medical treatment or whatever. So again, it's, in my humble opinion, it starts way too late. The world is already way too set up, and the issue here is caring. So you kind of care about Superman, being injured and all that stuff because Superman. All right, everybody knows Superman. There's not much else that we need to know. The issues with everybody else. Why would I care? Let's say about, Krypto's a dog, so that's really a bad example. But why would I care? Why is Lex Luthor upset with Superman? If you're a normie, if you don't know much about stuff, who is this Jimmy Olsen dude? Why should I care? Who the hell is Guy Gardner? Why should I care? So there's a bunch of stuff that, because you're already dropped into the middle of an already functioning world per se, just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so the pacing is off, the timing is off. If they would have changed a lot of things timing wise in this movie, it probably could have worked a lot better. Again, I don't know, because there's good things in it. All right, I'll start there. There's one scene in particular that I thought was phenomenal. The fights are nothing special. There's just a bunch of CGI. They're not the best Superman fights I've seen. They're not the worst superhero fights I've ever seen. They're just there. They're okay. I'd say they're okay to bad. Not great. They're not reinventing the wheel. They do a bunch of, again, really dumb things that bug me personally, because you can tell why they did it that way. But anyway, so if you watch it, man, would I have paid, how much does it cost to go to the movies in the US? $10? I would not have hated those $10. It would have been okay. I went there, left a few times. There was a few moments that had a bit of heart. The issues going forward, I'll put it this way. I would be curious to see this particular Superman, his next adventure. Because again, Superman is solid. I think the character's fine. The issue's kind of the story. So again, it starts off with Superman losing, so in kind of a terrible situation. So he's not particularly likable, because when you just get your ass kicked, you're not that nice. Starting off as a loser it's not a particularly great look for a character who's meant to be larger than life, inspirational, invincible, a quasi god. So if you're gonna do the whole fallen god thing, you need to see him kind of be a god before. But whatever. It's so. Again, performance okay, character okay. It's just the story was dumb. But if somebody else directed the next one, not named James Gunn, it could be better. It's just not a good fit. It's not his style. I don't know why he wanted to make this movie, to be honest. It just doesn't fit him. Again, it's the cape was too big for him, in my humble opinion. And again, who am I to criticize James Gunn, right? But that's how it feels. As a fan looking at it, it's like, dude, that was too much for you. You tried to do too much. You try to cover it up, adding a bunch of Easter eggs and other characters, but I don't like the direction that you're taking. Okay, so I don't hate the direction where the universe is going, this one in particular, the DCCU, but I don't love it either. It's just, I may or may not watch it. I may or may not care. Right now, man, it sucks. I feel like he let Superman down. That's okay. So I'm figuring out. I feel like James Gunn let Superman down, and he let the David Cornsweet performance down. There were moments that were good, Particularly to me, there. But again, even serious moments are ruined by one or two stupid jokes. Like there's one scene where Lois and Clark are talking, and it's a particularly down moment for Clark, right? And they're having a conversation, and in the background, some dumb stuff that's meant to be funny is happening, and you're just like, dude, just let him have this conversation. It's funny because you're watching the movie, and at that conversation, I'm like, okay, yes, this should be the movie. This should be the Clark that you're showing us. There's a lot here to work with. Keep going that way. But no, they go in another direction, and so that sucks. The cast is ginormous. I mean, just look at here, all the characters. I'm going to mention a bunch of characters. Not all of these are relevant in the story. Some of them just, pop up randomly, but just so you see. Superman, Lex Luthor, Guy Gardner, Metamorpho, The Engineer, Hawkgirl, Maxwell Lord, Otis Graves, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Mr. Terrific, Eve Teschmacher, Supergirl, and those are just to name a few. All right, there's also a bunch of other characters that are just secondary, or they made up for this particular movie or this story that aren't even mentioned. Like I didn't even mention Perry White, and a bunch of other reporters and a bunch of minions and stuff like that. So too many characters and not all handled great. So the Hawk Girl character, she does this screech in the middle of fights that just annoys me, and I'm like, I don't remember watching, the Justice League show and Hawk Girl being like, yeah, every time she attacked. That would have been extremely annoying. So it's one of those things that's like, did they just add that as a joke? And why? It's not particularly funny, but okay. I also forgot to mention, let me see. Rick Flag. Jor-El. Kara-El. Cat Grant. Eve Teschmacher. Did I say Mr. Terrific? Oh yeah, I did say Mr. Terrific. Jonathan and Martha Kent. I think those are the ones that would be, yeah. Plus, Crypto and all the bunch of robots that Superman has. So a lot of characters, and that already feel like their story's already developed a little bit. So for example, oh man, this would be a spoiler. I don't want to do spoilers. Because there's one character that basically breaks everything, and it's the stupidest thing ever. They changed the origin story for Superman in a very bizarre way. So, let's just do this. I'll finish up with the spoiler-free part, and I'll mention a few things because I took notes. I took a bunch of notes while I was in the movies, and so oh my god, I took a bunch of notes. So I'll read a few of these, I guess. Overall, movie's watchable. Not the worst Superman movie. Good Superman performance overall. Funny at times. Tries a little bit too hard. Plot is beyond stupid. Everything is way too convenient. Like, for example, like freaking Lois Lane talks to somebody in the Defense Department on the phone. Like, she just has their number, and they picked her up in the middle of like a very precarious situation per se. So everything is way too convenient. It's too much for little kids, I guess. But I mean, it doesn't feel like a little kid movie either, because the jokes are kind of grown up. I think that's the thing. Okay, I'm figuring it out. So you got a bunch of adult jokes in there, and the dark adult sense of humor of James Gunn, but it feels silly in the way that a kids movie would feel. Like if I was watching a Superman animated cartoon and they take away all the adult jokes and all that stuff, like Guy Gardner, for example, flipping off with the using his Green Lantern powers to make giant middle fingers. You're like, okay, that's an adult joke or whatever. So if they took away all the adult joke stuff and they made this a cartoon or something, or actually, just take away all the jokes, all the adult jokes, it could have been way better. No, it wouldn't work as a live action film because the movie's too silly. The plot's just too dumb. Like, it's mind-numbingly dumb. But there's way too many plot holes. But all right, overall, you can watch it. I don't feel like I threw away my money, but again, it was only $6. So there you go. And now moving on to spoiler. These maybe or probably will be spoilers. So spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So things that bugged me. The biggest problem in this movie is the plot. Okay, the plot is beyond fucking dumb. It's stupid. It's retardedly stupid at many times. So basically, so basically Lex Luthor wants to take down Superman, right? That's like the simplest way possible. The issue, and he actually he wants to kill Superman. He wants to get the excuse from the government to be able to kill Superman, you know, get him out of there. The issue is that the movie begins with Lex Luthor taking down Superman and not finishing the job. It's weird. Well, not weird. It's stupid. Okay? It's so fucking stupid because the way that they kind of handle the Superman against the Lex Luthor creation fight could be cool, except that you could have solved it like that, or Superman could have solved it like that. They just didn't want to, and I'll get into the why. And I actually noticed it at one point where I'm like, oh my god, I forgot this, but whatever. So Lex Luthor, again, the movie begins with them straight up beating up Superman and then just walking away. So you're thinking, all right, there's gonna be another plan here. No, they're keeping him alive for a particular reason or something. No, it turns out that, you know, Lex Luthor kind of just wanted the excuse from the government to be able to kill Superman. So you're like, okay, he didn't want to be a killer. But at this point, Lex Luthor had already killed the guy in cold blood. So you're like, okay, stupid plot hole. And continuing with stupid plot hole, the entirety of, I'm not going to say the entirety, but a pretty important part of this movie hinges on Lex Luthor's girlfriend, who, by the way, I think he speaks to once. So I was keeping because I thought they kind of just had her as a joke. She's a dumb girl taking selfies the entire time. So you're like, all right, so she's the dumb blonde there taking selfies always. I don't understand why Lex Luthor would have her as a girlfriend. You know, like the smartest man in the world. I don't understand. Like, I understand him having a hottie or any hottie he wants. He's rich and he's super smart, but like, she doesn't have to be your girlfriend. I mean, because what are you going to talk about? Again, classic dumb bimbo hottie just taking selfies all the time. Also, seems like kind of a security risk, you know, a girl who's taking selfies when you're doing massive crime and she's got a camera there. So when you're pissing off the most powerful being on the planet. And so a major part of this story hinges on that girl being obsessed. And I don't mean liking, I don't mean loving. I mean being obsessed with Jimmy fucking Olsen. Okay? Superman's little photographer sidekick. She's obsessed with him. Okay, now how they know each other, we don't know. Or how does a girl who goes out with a random nobody that works for the newspaper ends up then dating one of the richest, smartest man on the planet. It's not clear, but this plot requires that girl to be obsessed with Jimmy Olsen. And at the same time, Jimmy Olsen's like, oh, this dumb bitch. Oh, she's so annoying. Oh, she's so crazy. Like, dude, first off, way out of your league. Second, what the fuck kind of writing is this? That's cartoony type of writing. Like, oh, well, they like each other, but how did they know each other? Well, they met before. Okay, cool. Thanks for that one. That's all right. So that's next level writing. But anyway, so and again, it's funny. They only talk once. Lex Luthor and his girlfriend only really talk once, but she's with him all the time. It's stupid. It's a beyond stupid character, but they just added her so that they could do the Jimmy Olsen thing, and then she would feed the information to Jimmy Olsen that would lead to other stuff. So stupid, and it annoys me because they're saying, well, the audience is stupid and they won't notice this and they don't care. But anyway, so there's a bunch of they changed the story of Superman, where his parents, you know, send him here to be the protector, blah blah blah. Here they do something different, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's clearly meant to should I not? It'll probably ruin a joke. I bet it was meant to be funny, but I don't think the joke really lands because nobody in the theater laughed. What should I do? I'll think about it. There's, again, feeling like we're in a world that already started. Lex Luthor created a prison, created a pocket universe, and in that pocket universe, he created a prison. So in that prison, that prison annoyed the hell out of me. So first off, creating a pocket universe is wild. It's crazy, and he basically teleports through that pocket universe, which again, it's nuts. It's crazy, but okay. And apparently he did it very quickly because his people are, you know, just that good. But and he built a prison in it, but the prison's like a giant cube, and they're translucent cubes, so it's really, you can see what's inside every cube. You can see people there, but there are no beds, there are no toilets, there's no nothing. And part of the movie requires basically Lex Luthor putting a baby right across from his dad so the dad does something, and so he's just, but the baby has kind of like a babysitter slash guard, so it's like this big angry dude in a prison cell, in a big giant cube prison cell with a baby kind of just glaring at the dad the entire time. It's weird, man. It's weird, and it's really dumb. It's really stupid. Like, visually it might look cool, but if you think about it for more than a second, you're like, this is just stupid. This whole thing right there, dumb. I don't know why they did it. Again, they don't have any shower, they don't have anything. I don't know how they get food. Whatever, dumb stuff. But again, it's just basically magic. All right, it's Lex Luthor kind of has magic. He created a pocket dimension. Magic. Anyway, so let me see. Okay, so yeah, I already mentioned that the best conversation was between Lois and Clark, but they kind of ruined it with jokes in the background. Hawk Girl Screech. The classic that Clark's missing for a while, but nobody notices the Clark Kent's missing. There. Dumb things. They put nanobots in Clark's blood, so you're like, dude, how? Superman has unbreakable skin, but maybe they caught him in a situation where he was weak. Whatever. They just keep adding dumb jokes. You just remember this: garage. Just remember that. It's a dumb joke. Let me see. Okay, what happened there? Oh no, what's happening? What's going on? All right, looks like everything's fine. Okay. Oh, I'll go into other stuff. So the Kents, I did not like the Kents. The dad does not look like a farmer. The mom does not. Okay, they're really old now, I guess. But I mean, Clark is in his 30s. They should be around 60. They just look really old. Their accent drove me nuts. It was closer to hillbilly than what I think a Kansas accent is. Now, granted, I've never been to Kansas, so I don't know what a farmer's accent is in Kansas. However, I did watch the movie Looper with Emily Blunt, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Bruce Willis, which is a great movie, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's better than Superman, but in that movie, Emily Blunt is a farmer in Kansas, so she had to do a Kansas accent, and I'm like, none of y'all sound like Emily Blunt in the movie Looper. But all right, I get. See, to me, it should sound a little bit more like this, but they were just all hillbilly. Like, I don't know. I did not like them, and the worst part is that they're forgettable. And I'll put it to you this way. They appear in one scene, and give it 20 minutes, and I dare you to try to remember their faces. You won't. Well, you might, because I already told you, and you're gonna try to do it really hard, but I couldn't. And so, issue there. They also, it's really weird that they have a really thick kind of hillbilly accent, and Superman doesn't. Superman speaks clean, like normal English, but okay. And again, they look more like hillbillies than farmers. You'd think a farmer would be slightly more fit because, you know, they work in a farm. But all right, manual labor and all that stuff. There's an invasion scene in this movie where an army's invading another country. It's the dumbest, stupidest looking invasion I've ever seen. Like, soldiers literally on a fence aiming at dudes with sticks. It's dumb. It looks stupid. Again, it looks like how a little kid would imagine an invasion goes. Dumb. Other dumb stuff like Superman holding up a crumbling building and, you know, the building not collapsing around him. That was, or breaking apart more. They, at one point, they try to kill Superman by filling his lungs with nanobots. So, I don't know if you know this, but Superman doesn't breathe. Okay? He can survive out in space for days at a time, maybe months. He does not breathe. Okay? He doesn't need oxygen to live. He's not human, but they try to do it this way, and you're like, okay, well, maybe they didn't know. Look, in spite of how hard Lex Luthor studied Superman, he didn't know this. By the way, the thing that annoyed me, one thing in particular, you're about, let's say, 2/3 into the movie, kind of, maybe halfway, and all of a sudden, Superman uses his laser vision, right? Like, and at that point, I was like, oh my God, I forgot that Superman had laser vision. I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot. So I was really into, you know, the other stuff I was playing, and I noticed like, oh, that's the first time he's used it. Like, oh, and then I realized, oh, if they would have used his laser vision before this, basically the entire movie would have been completely dumb and stupid. So you remember how I said that the movie begins with Superman losing a fight? So, because now I can do spoilers. It's basically, imagine Juggernaut from the X-Men, like a dude wearing that Juggernaut suit, and he's being told what to do by Lex Luthor. You know, he's got like, let's say uppercut is A2, so A2 uppercut, then C3. So I think it would have been better if they would have given him a remote control, but whatever. He's calling the shots. It's cool. Like, honestly, the concept is cool, but the way that they know what shots are to command this particular Juggernaut, called the Hammer of Bavaria, if I remember. The Hammer of Bavaria, maybe. Is they got some drones following him around so they can see what Superman's doing. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never read a comic where Superman's kind of like a total retard. And so to me, if I'm Superman and I'm fighting a dude and I see that there's little things flying around him that look kind of like cameras, and this dude's kicking my ass, I'd be like, hey, I'll just, you know, maybe if I take those little things down, things will start going my way. And so what would I do if these little things, you know, are flying and they're out of range? I would use my laser eyes, you know, like, and done, right? It would have been very simple. In fact, he could have just been like, zoop, all the cameras out of, done. And simple. So that it hit me, and it's like, that's why, like, a lot of this movie hinges on Superman just not using his laser vision, because it's probably his most powerful weapon, if we're being honest. Like, there's a video game where he does a fatality with the laser eyes that's really cool. But anyway, whatever. Just saying, dumb stuff. Let me just continue with more dumb stuff. What up? Oh, okay, so the filling the lungs thing, like, maybe they don't know, right? Turns out that Lex Luthor managed to clone Superman, and so this Hammer of Bavaria is actually, you know, like a clone of Superman. So first off, he said it was really easy to clone him, so I'm like, why don't you just clone a lot of him and you would have like an army of Superman clones? But whatever, he didn't. I guess he didn't think of that, because that would have been, you know, too easy, I guess. But whatever, maybe he couldn't do more than one clone. I don't know. You would think that they would test drowning that said clone to see if that would kill Superman. So if they would have told me in this movie, yeah, well, we made 100 Superman clones. They were not perfect, but the one that was the closest to perfect, we taught to fight, and we did all this, you know, teaching him to follow my commands, blah blah, and the rest we just tested out how to kill him. And so we figured out all these things, blah blah blah, and we figured out that we can kill him by sticking nanobots in the lungs. And then it fails because it turns out the real Superman doesn't really breathe. That would have been slightly less stupid, but I don't know. I mean, again, you think they would have tested out ways to kill Superman, but whatever. Again, it's dumb. The plot is dumb. It's like they were more worried about style than substance. That's pretty much it. This movie is all style, and it's not the greatest style, but whatever. Let me see. They also, there's a point where Superman like flies up to the ozone layer with a human chick. Well, I met a human, but she's not affected by, I don't know, the ozone layer, gravity, or, you know, being frozen up in the stratosphere, whatever. What else do I have here? Well, the war thing about the two countries is stupid. I'm not even going to get into it. Lex Luthor, again, they handled the character totally wrong. The performance is good. Nicholas Holt's a good actor, but we don't understand his motivations until way too late. Dude's kind of unhinged in many ways, and you don't understand his relationship with his girlfriend because they don't speak to each other. It's almost like they just added her as comic relief and as a convenient excuse for them to be able to foil Luthor's plans. So I think that's it. Those are my biggest complaints that I noticed in the first watch, and that I had time, because I didn't want to miss parts of the movie because I'm going to be typing. But yeah, and I was actually like a quarter into, maybe a third into a movie when I decided, okay, I got to take notes of this shit. So overall, not terrible, not great. Again, good performance. If they get somebody else to direct the next one, I'd watch it. I'd continue watching movies, particularly because the Superman character is good. Lois Lane, I didn't love her, mainly because Lois Lane did not feel like an adult. I guess she felt like a millennial adult, and that's what bugs me. I'm more used to the professional Lois Lane. She didn't feel like that. It was too weird, too casual. Like, not somebody who you take seriously that much, but whatever. I think that's a good place to stop. Like I said, has its moments. Bad person to direct it. Massively stupid plot. More style than substance. So if you like style, again, you'll laugh a few times. Visually, you'll be like, oh, that was cute, that was cool. So I guess it depends on what you like, but there you go. That's the most objective I can be. Spoilers a little bit. Spoiler free. No, that's not spoiler. I went through a lot of spoilers. So there you go. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.